2, 3, 4.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Power of Music Thinking. My name is Christoph Zürn, and this is the podcast for people with a musical heart and a wicked job. We're looking for stories, insights and tools from the big world of music to inspire leaders and followers to listen, tune, play and perform in whatever field you're operating. At the age of 9, Anna Filochowska knew what she wanted to do: play with the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. And this was just the start. In our conversation today, Anna shares insights from the core of an orchestra, facing the conductor and the audience at the same time, and experiencing how everyone in the orchestra works together and plays at their utmost best. We'll learn how this feels when you are in the middle of the sound performance and how it helps to do a totally different job some decades later. So, join us in our conversation and hear more about the journey from Poland to Germany and the US, from playing violin in a top-notch orchestra to getting an MBA at Stanford University Graduate School of Business and writing a white paper about AI and music. But let's first hear a recent recording to get into the mood. And the link to the full concert is in the show notes. Welcome, Anna. Welcome to the Power of Music Thinking.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the show and to also have a chance to speak with you today.
Absolutely. The joy is on my side. By the way, where are you calling from today?
Today, I'm calling from Warsaw, Poland. This is my hometown, and I'm spending the summer visiting my family as well as having a summer internship.
Oh, wow. How is Warsaw? I've never been there.
You should come very soon. It's a wonderful city that completely transformed itself in the span of my lifetime, which is the past 30 years. It's a really impressive business center right now. It's got a lot of different businesses. It's got great restaurants and nightlife and culture. I think it's a very exciting place to visit. I'm having a great time this summer, and the summertime is the best time of the year, I would say, for this city.
Okay, it's a little bit like Berlin. How far away is it from Berlin?
Not far. It's about 6 hours by train.
Okay, so because it's the same with Berlin. I love Berlin in the summer, but in the winter it can be really cold.
Exactly. It's similar, maybe even more windy here.
Okay, no, nice. Good. So I always start with the same question, and here it comes. So what's your first or most memorable experience or album or recording that had an impact on you?
I love this question. I grew up in a musical home. I have two older brothers who were practicing the violin at home when I was a toddler. And the family legend goes that I believed every kid plays the violin growing up. So when I went for my first day of kindergarten, my first question to every child was which piece they are working on. And then the myth, I learned the truth that nobody else was practicing the violin or learning anything musical. And so, but it was too late. I was already indoctrinated in this path. But I would say something I remember really fondly and vividly when it comes to music was our car rides. So my mother would drive my siblings and me for violin lessons from Warsaw to Poznań, about 300 kilometers every
Wow.
2 weeks. And we had a chance to study with the best violin teacher in Poland. And my mom, she was so dedicated. She wanted us to have the very best education from the earliest years. And so on our long car rides, we would listen to violin recordings of primarily Itzhak Perlman. And I fell in love with his sound. And I remember listening to the Beethoven violin concerto and then looking at the landscape, at the fields, at, this expansive fields, driving through Poland, through villages, and really that sound of that concerto, of the peaceful atmosphere and the landscape, and then our family chats in the car. These are some of my earliest musical memories.
Wow, and it really sounds like a whole journey. You're learning an instrument, and also I think I also like it very much that sound and vision and maybe also smell. Everything goes together. It's in
100%.
In the power of music thinking. Let's say I always start with music, but let's face it, it's about all the senses that we have, but music is a very strong one. Yes, very good. And interesting. So no other kid learned a musical instrument?
No, not in the kindergarten where I went. So it was, just there was no such focus. I guess I realized how privileged I was that my siblings and I were exposed to music at such an early age. And obviously, when we had house parties, birthday parties, my mom would invite other kids who were learning instruments, and they would bring their instruments. And we had little concerts in our living room when I was a kid. So it was only a matter of time and I was the youngest one in my home. So I was waiting till I could join the party.
And it was all classical music.
All classical music, yes, and different instruments. So kids would play cello and piano and violin, but lots of violins for sure.
So wow, maybe Anna, just tell us a little bit about yourself, so that we understand why you're a guest of the Power of Music Thinking.
Like I mentioned, I grew up in a musical home. I got very serious about music at an early age. Maybe around 8 years old, I won my first national competition in Poland. And then I actually didn't win the first prize. I won the third prize. And this is when my competitive side kicked in. And I started to realize that I really liked competition. And I had a goal to get better, to start winning first prizes. And so I entered many competitions, and I, usually placed first or second. Shortly after, my mom started finding competitions around Europe. So I went and competed in Germany, the Czech Republic, Italy, and we would travel as a family with my mom, and sometimes my brothers would also compete. So we started to get a bit of reputation in our home country in Poland. People were a bit scared when our family would arrive. Then a lot of these top prizes usually we were able to gather. So that was all very exciting. Then we started being supported by the president and first lady of Poland. I had a chance to be interviewed on radio and TV at an early age. And then at the age of 9 on live TV, I was asked the question of what I wanted to do when I grew up. And that question caught me by surprise. I was not ready for it. And so I remember I blanked for a second, and then I said, well, I have to say something. And so in that moment, from all the car rides, thinking about all these wonderful CDs we've been listening to, and the orchestra on these CDs was the Berlin Philharmonic. And so in that very moment, I said, when I grow up, I'd like to play with a Berlin Philharmonic.
Wow.
And that dream actually did come true. So I went on to study as a kid. I had a chance to study with Itzhak Perlman. Again, the violinist, the idol I had from childhood. I got into his class at the age of 11. So my family and we moved to New York for me to study with Itzhak Perlman at the Juilliard School.
Wow.
So I was supported by the Polish president, by the Ministry of Culture to make this possible for me to study with him. I was his student for 4 years. Then I went on to concertize, perform around the world. I ended up getting my Bachelor of Music from the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia, which is a very prestigious school. And when I graduated and I landed my first job with the Berlin Philharmonic,
Wow.
that was back in 2018. I was over the moon. I honestly, the first weeks playing with that orchestra, I was going back in my mind to that moment. I said these words on live TV that this is what I wanted to do when I grew up. A full circle moment for me.
Full circle. So how life works. So the question is, because you said you weren't prepared for this question, it just came out, and at a certain moment you are there, and I assume that as a 9-year-old, you don't know what it exactly means to be there. So
I had no idea.
Yeah. So you moved to Berlin?
I did. I moved to Berlin, September 2018. It was
Simon Rattle's still there, 2018? No.
So he just left. And so it was the first year I was there. It was a year of in between the two chief conductors, in between Simon Rattle and Kirill Petrenko. So there were a number of fantastic guest conductors coming, and a couple of projects with Kirill Petrenko. It was a truly wonderful first season. I had a chance to go on an Asian tour. The music making was truly fabulous. And I was challenged. I was learning everything basically for the first time. I was maybe trained to be more of a soloist. So playing a lot of symphonic repertoire was not something I was as familiar with. So a lot of challenging projects, but then you figure out a way to prepare in a very short amount of time, because every week you play different music. So you only have a couple of days in between one cycle till the next to learn new music. And so I realized, the time to prepare was shorter and shorter, because you find your own way of learning, of showing up, of coming prepared. And so that was all very exciting. I was on top of it also continuing my solo activities, playing with orchestras in the US. And I was also going on jazz tours with Chris Bodie, who is an American jazz trumpeter. So it was a very, very full first season.
Yeah.
And then second season started, which was, 2019. And the season was cut short because of the pandemic. And at that point, when the pandemic started, one tour, one after the other was getting canceled slowly, one at a time. There was really no endpoint in sight. So it was an interesting time. I think it was a time for me to pause and reflect, which ended up being very helpful for me.
Where have you been there? You talked about traveling the world, New York and Warsaw. Where did you spend your COVID days?
The first quarantine, I was in Berlin. I was in between projects and between rehearsals and concerts. Actually, my very last project before the pandemic was with Sir Simon Rattle. And we showed up to rehearse on Tuesday. On Wednesday, it was announced that we would only play one of the 3 concerts planned, and there would be no audience. This was the first time. This was just going to be a live streamed concert, and we played the Bartók Concerto for Orchestra. And when the last notes were played, the musicians got up and left the stage with no applause, in silence, which is just unimaginable, given especially the fiery nature of that last movement of that piece. And really, we had little drinks backstage because we kind of didn't know if we were saying goodbye to each other or when we would see each other next time. I think the assumption was it would take a couple of weeks or at most a couple of months. But it was a truly lots of uncertainty in that time for all musicians.
So I think many listeners now also go back to their moment, and also you're in the middle of something, and then you get there's a big break, and you have to stop with everything. But maybe also, and by the way, what you just mentioned, that also sounds like a memorable sonic experience after Bartok playing, and then there's the silence. The silence of the Philharmonic. And I think we can also share that the Berlin Philharmonic, they have also a very interesting online platform to listen to music on a very high level. So that's also something they were already, let's say, prepared for this in some way, because they wanted to share their music with many people. But maybe just also cycling back to that Berlin Philharmonic thing, what's so different? And not all our listeners are into classical music so much. So maybe how can you explain what's the difference, let's say, between the Berlin and another orchestra?
I performed primarily with the Berlin Philharmonic in my career, so I cannot be so sure about all of the differences. But I would say what stood out to me was the individual effort and engagement from every single player. Incredible energy and passion and attention to detail that came from every single member, and the ownership of the product, so to say, the performance, was everyone had that ownership and responsibility on their shoulders, which I think is so unique. In many organizations, you will feel like, there is a clear leadership and clear followers, and there is a hierarchy of people. Of course, we've got the conductor and we've got the concertmaster, and then you've got section principals who are the leaders whom you follow. But at the same time, as much as you follow, you lead as well. And I think this is what makes that ensemble one of the best in the world. And it's electrifying sitting inside and feeling like you sit in the last stand, or in maybe you sit, a few stands in front, but you hear that wave of sound just leading from the back. And so in a way, sometimes they say the leaders up front, they have the easiest job because all of that sound is already created in the back. And, it's just much easier to make music and to create something great that way, as opposed to, let's say, having somebody at the top in the front of the section who is trying to pull a heavy weight. So I would say
maybe that's also something to explain, because we're drawing a lot of analogies between music and the rest of the world, and you are so in the middle of this. And I would say normally, or if you're a lay person, you would go to a concert maybe for the first time. You see everybody's dressed well. You see one person in the middle that comes later than all the rest and gets the most applause, and then something happens and everybody thinks this is the leader. But we all know in the case of Bartok that he doesn't play his own songs, the leader, he plays songs from someone else. So the big question is he a leader or is he the first follower? But can you take us through these let's say, power differences. And I really love that you said that the whole orchestra, every individual had that vibrant, sound. So nice to if you could explain this how it works, and I think then people can also draw in their mind like the organization where they are, how this maybe relates.
I would say there is no such thing as being a junior person or less important person. Every role is crucial. Every note that you play is part of that grand vision. And that orchestra, I think everyone believes that they have the vision and they want to bring it to life. So in a way, their philosophy, I believe, is better to make mistakes and make them confidently. There is no such thing as trying to hide or, be sort of correct. It's better to bring all of you into it. And so I think, for organizations, oftentimes, people are following and maybe, they don't want to stick out or they don't want to offend anybody or make the wrong decision. So they take no decision. And ultimately, I think this is actually the worst decision that you could make. So I think, just being confident. And if, let's say if you are not doing what you're supposed to be doing, at least it's easier to diagnose and identify that mismatch and sort of misunderstanding than, let's say, having weeks pass and then you try to, find the issue. So I think just being always proactive, I think it's that full engagement that is so special and that actually creates that intrinsic motivation that is really hard to instill in a lot of organizations, because it's not that you get, you have to do something special once in a while I think if you do it on a daily basis and you know that because this is the team and this is what the team expects, and it energizes everybody. It's like this wonderful contagious feeling of I'm going to show up fully because everyone else around me is that way.
That resonates a lot with how I'm thinking, about the music thinking. There are 4 phases, like listen, tune, play, and perform. And as you just mentioned, so everybody's already performing. So it's not like, and I really like what you just said. So there are no juniors. Everyone counts. And that's also performance. Performance doesn't mean only the people in the front perform, but also the people in the backstage perform, the people who let the audience in perform. So everything is just one performance.
And going back to music thinking frameworks, obviously, you cannot forget about the listening piece and the tuning piece. Those are kind of the foundation. The way I felt when I was playing with the Berlin Philharmonic, my ears, they were listening to people far away from me, from on the other side of the stage. I could be fully engaged and confident and wanting to communicate a lot myself, but in the context of everyone else around me. So it was an amazing listening exercise. It was just truly so very special. And you feel when everyone else is listening as much as you're listening.
Wow, I think that's a very nice quote. So that you feel that, so you play into a listening and not just play and then people listen. So everybody is together in this. But maybe also good to share with people, because some people maybe some people might have never seen a classical orchestral concert. So I would really say, please go there. And I always tell people, don't just go to the concert, go to a rehearsal, because then you understand the music much better. Because then some people talking about what they want. And but in the case of the violin, and I think Bartok is a very let's say a big orchestra, and as an violinist, you're sitting directly in front of, what is it, the trumpets or the
Well, it depends on the stage setup and the conductor's wish, and but yeah, you are basically sitting at the edge of the stage, so in front of the audience. Well, if you're the first violin, if you're the second violin, you are either directly across from the first violin section, or you're next to them. And then behind you have the winds, and then you've got the brass, and then percussion, and also on one side. So sometimes behind the violin section, you've got harps as well, and basses.
The point that I want to make is you're sitting in the middle of the orchestra, everybody is playing, but if there's a trumpet or, let's say, a clarinet directly behind you, they have to play as loud so that people in the last row can hear it. So for your own personal experience, I assume that it doesn't sound well. And I want to make the analogy sometimes to an organization. If you have a good organization, sometimes people have to feel, oh, it doesn't feel good for me. But at the very end, everybody's working for that one big, great sound that has to start in the first row and goes to the last row. Does this resonate with you?
100%. The sound you make, the way you play, it's not meant to be good on its own. It's not meant to sound pleasant to your own ear right next to your instrument. And same with the colleagues around you. The question is, how do we find the blend, the ideal sound? How do we put 120 orchestra members, people playing individually in a way that's not, let's say, optimal, but create the optimal final result? That takes experience to find that right balance, the way you should play that's, let's say, projecting enough, but at the same time that leaves space for others. Lots of different questions there. It takes definitely lots of getting to know yourself and people around you.
Yeah, very important. And it changes from piece to piece. You play a romantic piece that maybe everybody knows by heart and maybe don't even need a conductor. And there are other pieces where they are very complicated and lots of dynamics. And sometimes in an evening you play two or three different pieces.
It's fascinating. You play one line, but your mind actually has to be more engaged, more involved in what other people are doing around you. So you have to be such a master of your own craft, being able to listen maybe only with one ear to what you do, and use your brain to track and adjust as needed, but then having so much more space left to follow, let's say, 10, 15 other lines happening all at the same time.
That's if we make the analogy, it's like talking and listening at the same time. And we all know that this is very hard if you're a group of, let's make it easy, 5 or 7 people, and everybody is talking. And while you talk, that you really can listen what the others also have to say. Oh.
Absolutely.
And
then
music thinking,
yeah,
I only invite people that do something special and are musicians. So this was the musical part.
And then, yes, my life changed quite a lot in 2020, end of 2020. I started to grow a little impatient, I must say, with the situation. And I think I want to feel productive and take charge. And I just didn't feel comfortable with waiting. And on top of it, there were questions in my mind whether orchestral playing, even though this is what I named at 9, if this was truly my purpose in life, the vision, the grandest vision I had for myself. And I wasn't convinced that it was, even though obviously, like I described it, I had a very good time playing in the orchestra. So then I, step by step, started to explore different things, first, all in the context of music. But some of the earliest attempts and experiments that I did had to do with lending the type of opportunities I felt I had studying music from an early age, trying to give that opportunity to other people, realizing that music is such a huge privilege and it's, for me, it's such a basic human right. Most people enjoy listening to music and hear music, but such few people have the chance to actually pursue music, even just as a hobby, because it takes instruments, it takes years of training, it takes lessons. There are so many things that need to go right for you to be able to pursue it. So I decided to see whether technology could solve any of these issues. And so I started working on an application called Movement. And I came to this idea by meeting a couple of tech and business leaders through a VC incubator program in Berlin called Antler. So it was a huge coincidence and a huge luck I had getting into that program. And I was called the domain leader, somebody who didn't have business or tech skills, but perhaps knew something about the music world and could potentially bring fresh ideas and innovate in the music industry. So I started working on Movement with a team because they wanted to work with me. At first, it was just about our synergies, about team dynamics, and about this building in the music space. So we ended up prototyping an app that enabled users to use body gestures to modulate and create different sounds and rhythms. So that was all very fun. I thought, this would be a great way, for example, for children to have a first experience, an active experience of music creation, not just listening passively, but actually engaging in what it takes to create music. So that was that idea I had. There was an educational component and like an entertainment component. So that was, and I realized, it's great, but you have to know how to turn it into a business. You have to know something about the market, about customers, about how to monetize it. And so I didn't know how to go about any of that at that time. And so I graduated from that incubator program after about 3 months. And I decided I could have gone back to exactly what I used to do. And I decided to continue playing, but keep poking at this idea, see what I can do with it and what I can learn. I think it was that kind of new energy I felt inside of me, that curiosity to explore what's this different identity, me as a CEO, who is this person? And it excited me. Truly, I felt butterflies in my stomach. And so I feel like in my life, there are moments when I hear whispers. And this was one of the time. It was like, there is something. Why don't you pay attention to it for a while? And so from that, I ended up pursuing different opportunities with a startup. We were part of a EU social fund that supported us, and we could keep prototyping. And eventually, I found myself applying for an MBA program to actually study business so I could feel competent in a new field. And I ended up getting admission to Stanford University's Graduate School of Business, which is one of the best business schools in the world. And I got in for fall 2022, and I just graduated 3 months ago, now being an MBA.
What's next? What do you think? And by the way, we can also mention on one way leaders and CEOs. So we had many in this podcast, and so that are also musicians. So actually, that's the theme. And also one, Nifemi, he was was in the podcast in one of the first. So we can thank him because he said, "Oh, you should talk with Anna. She might be interesting." So that's also
absolutely.
And also the link with, let's say, from the music part, when you just described about the orchestra and how you're playing. We had Harvey Seifter here, who was the CEO of the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra that never plays with a conductor. So there's a lot of, I don't want to say leadership. I would rather say there's a lot of leading, leading from different perspectives in all these nice conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But will you go back, or let's say you're living in parallel worlds? Are you still performing?
I am performing, and actually my playing and my relationship with music has changed a lot. So I love how you are thinking about music as it can potentially help or support different concepts in business. And for me, I felt like I was learning so much in business that I could apply to music. So it's really a two-way street. And I couldn't understand at first why studying accounting and different business courses, how was it making my playing better? So obviously, I've realized that there were a lot of generally feeding your mind with new ideas, expanding your mind, opening yourself up to different people, different challenges. It helps different things in your life. And on top of it, there was this idea of pressure that I felt being a professional musician that I no longer felt as an MBA student. So I felt some kind of freedom in my expression. I could say musically whatever I wanted without fear of judgment. And on top of it, I must say that thinking so much in business school about marketing, about your value proposition, about who your customer is, I realized as musicians, sometimes we don't ask ourselves these type of questions because we think they are not exactly relevant. And yes, the language might not be the same, but I think the concepts apply. And so I was learning a lot. For example, when I perform, who do I perform for? What do they expect? How would I change my performance based on the venue, based on the type of audience? How would I program my recital differently? So all of a sudden, I realized I was thinking about my art, my craft, with different questions in mind, which ultimately I think was making my performance a lot more successful.
Mm. And in music thinking, I have, let's say, one approach that I call different positions of leadership. And I think, classical music is in the first place to play perfectly that what the composer, that great mind, has come up with, and perform this in the very best sense. And if you go into a different genre, like in pop music, then the producer is in play. And the producer, like the conductor, also doesn't make a sound, but the producer, he actually is market driven. He just wants something out on a record or what else that people will buy. And there are more positions like the jazz where the player is also in the middle. And I think that resonates a little bit what you just said. So you are on the stage and you feel that people are maybe today are different, and you might play your song in a different way, or you solo, or you make it shorter or bigger or longer. And so I think that resonates a lot in that in that space. Is there anything concrete, something what you're working on?
I'm still exploring different interesting things that I'm not yet familiar with. So this summer I'm not practicing, and generally I noticed that I think I've spent so many hours practicing my whole life, over 20 years, every single day, many hours a day, that I don't practice on a regular basis anymore. It's more when I'm asked to perform, I have a routine how I get myself ready for that performance. And that involves a couple of weeks of intense practicing, or, gradually intense, because you can't go from 0 to 100 overnight. And so, but right now so musically, I would say I'm playing for the joy of it, and still exploring what music gives me and gives others. It's still kind of like right now, it's the space I'm just enjoying, and I want to make sure that I'm fulfilling that side of me, that I'm not forgetting about it. Even though I don't yet have that longing feeling all the time, when I do play, I'm connecting with a whole different part of me than when I'm, let's say, working on a business proposal, or working with business or nonprofit organizations. But I can also mention, so this summer I'm spending here in Warsaw working at a real estate development company. So learning about the real estate market in Poland. This is a whole new world. I'm doing a lot of financial analysis. I think my brain, maybe many musicians' brains, they like numbers, music and numbers. There seems to be quite a clear link. Einstein was a violinist, actually, and I'm nowhere close to Einstein, but I still like numbers. So
you play at the same frequency. So it said that when Einstein was in his working room, and sometimes he would come out, play an hour violin or piano, and then get back. So like sometimes there are no words for expressing what you're working on. And I think that's the power of music and the power of music thinking, then to go on a different level and write and refreshing the brain. That's why I also would like to encourage everyone to learn a musical instrument. Also, if it's just, let's say, some kind of flute or maybe an electronic instrument. And it's also so nice when you learn that you can master something, that you say, oh my God, how does it work? And you need help from someone. And I have this, and I'm absolutely no professional musician, but sometimes you rehearse a piece and you play it, and sometimes you always make the same mistake on the same part. And sometimes I play other pieces, and then after a time, oh, there was this piece, and you play it, and it works. So sometimes it's also good letting go, and and also let I don't know, time or music or the brain do the rest.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think there is so much value to just playing, just for the enjoyment, but also even for the hand-eye coordination, some very physiological things, but even just the way that you will explore your own problem solving skills, and it will truly uncover so many different aspects. Like you said, you will be asking somebody for help, you will be feeling frustrated, and then also like feeling so accomplished by figuring out how to do something. It is truly a journey, and I'm just so privileged and lucky. I had an instrument given to me at such a young age, and then it's something that continues to accompany me through my life. And then this relationship, like I said, it's ever evolving.
There's one thing I would like to ask you, and as at the end of your MBA, I think you wrote a white paper about music and AI. And I thought, oh, maybe that's good to hear something about it. How, just maybe you can tell us a little bit more.
It's a space that is full of unanswered questions. Because, and when it comes to copyrights, if you train LLMs, large language models, with different artists, right? Like, and then you get something, it actually belongs to a person, not just a large language model. And on top of it, are you creating anything new, anything actually creative, which is probably at the core of music creation, the goal, or are you just creating a different combination of notes? Is this creative enough? We also believe that music, it starts with an emotion, with an intention. What if you strip away that piece, and if you, let's say, just have the different frequencies put together, what is the value of it? And so on one hand, I'm excited about AI in general. I would say, I think for processes, for, we no longer have to be stuck with pen and paper, and, that takes such a long time to even physically write out a whole symphony. Now we can be aided with many different processes, and that's all very exciting. When it comes to true value, the output itself, I think I want to know what a human was feeling and why that feeling led to a certain combination of notes. I'm not against AI. I think for creativity, for something as emotional and as kind of deeply human, I think automating and giving it to a machine kind of misses the point.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say if it comes to creating music that is, that you can use for background music, and maybe, there are some certain applications like, you want to have music that is personalized on the spot. Let's say you're running and you want to be motivated, because we all know that music can change your physiology and can change, you can feel a lot more energized, and let's say maybe based on your physiology, so it changes and gives you an extra boost and all of that. I see a lot of interesting use cases, and even I know at that company in Berlin, they are using music as a way for meditation and sleep improvement, and all of that for perhaps even for film use cases. I heard sometimes it's really difficult. You cut one part of a scene, and then all of a sudden nothing lines up, and then maybe AI could smooth it out, and and change the music and all of that. So I think there will be opportunities, but generally speaking, as a musician who derives so much joy and meaning from sound creation, and then how much I see that gives to listeners, I do believe that won't be a job that AI can do easily anytime soon, or I hope never.
Right. And there's the ethical thing, like where do you get what are your sources? Where do you get that information? Is there something you think about? Because maybe that's also in an MBA. I can imagine that when we talk about AI, we also have to talk about ethics, and
Yes.
not only about technology. And is there something? What's your take on this? What should happen to make AI better in the best sense of the word?
There are different companies that work on solving this, so not taking music by actual artists, but like synthesized music, or based on and maybe looking at it more from like a mathematical standpoint. So and you can also teach AI music as if though it were a language. We should remember where AI is actually helpful, and where AI is, let's say, saving people time and giving something of value, and let's say where we should actually just use it to aid human creativity, and not try to maybe even make it so good that it truly could replace composers, producers, creatives. So I think maybe these companies and solutions that simply try to work on making the workflows of music creation more streamlined and centralized. I think that all, to me, that seems like that would be very exciting.
For me, it's funny. I'm an improviser, so for me, it's like I want quick results and direct response. So and that for me, yeah, maybe there will be once a tool where I can play and I get a
duet.
Yeah.
That would be super fun. Exactly. I think for learning purposes, I didn't also mention it. I'm sure, there can be so many use cases where you can use AI to help you practice, to train you, to all of that. At the same time, I'm also thinking about AI for education. Lots of ethical dilemmas, and also even like, how do we solve for motivation, which is the key aspect. And really, probably the human cannot be outsourced for motivation.
Anya, do you think that we didn't touch from classical music to MBA and even AI?
No, this was a wonderful conversation. So right now I'm creating a newsletter myself where I will try to explore what the musician mindset is for business leaders. And I'm creating this newsletter with a fellow former professional musician and MBA graduate who is also a business consultant. And so we are exploring ways where the musicians have competitive edge and trying to unveil these secrets and ways that our minds work, and what we, for example, have gained by training for 20 plus years so intensely in one field, how these skills can translate to a different field. So yeah, I'm truly excited to be also trying to marry these two, different fields and make sense, because I think myself personally, I was in the music world for majority of my life. All of a sudden I was in a business world, and I think I've developed very different compartments in my mind about how I think about music and business. But truly there is so much special magic and beauty and something truly unique if we try to actually learn from these two things, as opposed to trying to pull them apart as I unfortunately did at the beginning of my pivot.
Thank you for your music thinking and sharing your story with us. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate this, because listening is one of the top leadership skills, and I feel honored about this. It is my mission to find, create, and share inspirations for meaningful collaboration based on music analogies. If you want to support this, please subscribe to the podcast, give us a rating, or write a review on iTunes or Spotify. And more inspirations can be found on musicthinking.com. We have a blog, and you can download the Music Thinking Framework. And finally, I would love to hear your feedback. And if you need help with a business challenge, please reach out to me via email podcast@musicthinking.com.